Now, the rest of the story. Did you ever wonder what Wild West outlawing was really like? Was Jesse James in peril all the time, or was he just having fun? Historians will say that his life of crime was hard work. For example, July 7, 1875, the James Younger gang held up a train east of Otterville, Missouri, and Jesse told the man guarding the safe to get the money for them. The guard, however, had no keys, and neither had anybody else on the train. So Jesse told gang member Bob Younger to get an axe. Bob found a fire axe and started hacking away at the safe. But the heavy safe, just a few small dents. Now the guard is grinning, and Bob handed the axe to his brother Cole. Well, Cole Younger was a towering, broad-shouldered, powerful man. Took him every bit of 10 minutes slamming that axe into the safe before he chopped a hole in the top. But it was a hole so small that only Jesse's slender hand could reach inside. Needless to say, the boys were a long, tedious time getting the cash out of that safe. No, that was not an isolated instance. In fact, Jesse James worked so hard at outlawing, he almost retired twice. The first time was December 1869. Jesse was 22. Brother Frank and Cole Younger had just robbed the bank in Gallatin, Missouri. You've seen how bank robbers in Western movies run from the bank and jump on their horses. Well, this time, in real life, Jesse missed the saddle. He made the stirrup, but missed his horse. So, with Jesse's foot caught in the stirrup, that horse dragged him all the way down the street. Luckily, Frank looked back, saw what had happened. But by the time he could pull his brother into the saddle behind him, the whole town had been alerted and was shooting at the fleeing bandits. Bullets were flying everywhere. The gang's escape was miraculous. In fact, it would be many months before Jesse even considered another holdup. See what I mean? Jesse James worked hard. Summer 1876, the gang decided to rob the First National Bank, Northfield, Minnesota. During the robbery, everything that could go wrong went wrong. Gang members Clell Miller and Bill Chadwell were gunned down. Charlie Pitts and brothers Cole and Jim and Bob Younger were all wounded. A posse eventually caught up with them and killed Charlie with 5 bullets in the chest. The Younger brothers were captured and sent to prison for life. The James boys? No, they got away, but just barely. Rode south for 3 weeks, traveling only at night. They stole fresh horses and lived in barns. And when they finally reached Tennessee, they decided they'd had enough. Indeed, for 3 years, the notorious James brothers lived quietly as farmers. It was tough tilling the soil, but oh, so much easier than a life of crime. That not only makes sense, it makes dollars and cents. You see, Jesse James' personal share of his gang's ill-gotten gain during his 15 years on the wrong side of right was $32,336. But in terms of a 40-hour week, he made $1.04 an hour. $1.04 per hour. And now you know the rest of the story.
And now the rest of the story. According to Mr. Harvey, Jesse James's personal share from his 15 years in crime amounted to $32,336. Adjusted for inflation, that would amount to about $985,000 in today's money. Now, if we take a look at that $1.04 per hour that Mr. Harvey mentioned, that's a pretty good rate of pay. Adjusted for inflation, that would be about $31.65 per hour in today's money. Not bad. The disastrous robbery attempt of the First National Bank of Northfield, Minnesota, happened on September 7, 1876. As Mr. Harvey explained, everything that could go wrong went wrong. At about 2 p.m., the James Younger gang neared the bank and divided into groups. 3 men, believed to be Frank James, Charlie Pitts, and Bob Younger, entered the bank. 2 men guarded the door on the outside, and 3 men remained near a bridge a short distance away to ensure they had a safe getaway. Inside the bank was acting cashier Joseph Lee Haywood, bank teller Alonzo Bunker, and bookkeeper Frank Wilcox. Upon entering the bank, one of the three robbers ordered Joseph to open the safe which was located inside the vault. Joseph refused. Another one of the robbers walked into the vault. Joseph used his whole body weight to try to lock the robber in the safe, but the robber blocked the door with his arm and his hand. The robber yelled in pain as the door pinched and injured his arm and hand. The third robber ran over and struck Joseph with the butt of his pistol. Joseph was stunned and fell to the floor. The first robber pulled a knife from his pocket, walked over to Joseph, and put the blade to his throat. The robber ordered Joseph again to open the safe or he would slit his throat. Although he must have been terrified, Joseph bravely replied that he would have to slit his throat because it would be impossible for him or anyone else to open the safe due to its time lock. Bank robbing had become common enough that many safes came with a time lock, which meant that they could only be opened at a certain preset time. Now Joseph withheld a couple of details about the safe. It was equipped with a time lock, just as Joseph said, but it had not been set. The safe could have been opened at any time. Also, that safe was already unlocked. But Joseph kept that information to himself. Alonzo, the bank teller I've mentioned, he watched as the third robber began gathering what little cash there was in the cashier's drawer. He saw that the second robber was guarding Frank, the bookkeeper. Alonzo saw this as his opportunity and ran out the back door. The third robber followed and fired his pistol. The bullet struck Alonzo in the shoulder. Citizens had noticed the two men they didn't recognize that were guarding the front of the bank and quietly raised the alarm. They readied themselves for a gun battle. At about the time the robber shot Alonzo, the townspeople began firing at the gang members outside the bank. Out of frustration, one of the robbers knocked Joseph back to the floor and fired a bullet into the floor next to Joseph's head. The other two robbers ran out of the bank firing their pistols. The robber who remained inside the bank noticed that Joseph was trying to stand up. The robber went over to Joseph, put the pistol to his head, and pulled the trigger. Joseph's lifeless body crumpled to the floor, and the robber ran to the street to join the gun battle. Outside the bank, many of the townspeople hid behind cover and fired their weapons. 30-year-old Nicholas Gustafson was among the townspeople on the street when the shooting began. Now, Nicholas was a Swedish immigrant who had only been in America about 3 months. At the time, Millersburg, a town located about 12 miles southwest of Northfield, had been attracting a large number of Swedish immigrants. Nicholas, who lived in Millersburg, understood very little English and was confused when the gun battle erupted. He didn't know what to do. Nicholas was shot during the gun battle, purportedly by Cole Younger. Nicholas died 4 days later. Because there was no Swedish-American church in Millersburg, Nicholas was buried in the Northfield Cemetery just a few feet away from Joseph Lee Haywood. As Mr. Harvey explained, most of the gang were either killed or captured, but Jesse and Frank James escaped. The total take from the First National Bank of Northfield amounted to a whopping $26.70. In this case, crime certainly didn't pay. Remember that information that Joseph withheld from the robbers? Well, there was over $12,000 in cash in the unlocked safe. Now that would be just under $350,000 in today's money. Joseph Lee Haywood and Nicholas Gustafson have not been forgotten. Joseph became known as the hero of Northfield Bank. The Northfield Grand Army Post was named after Joseph. The United Church of Christ, of which he was a member, honored his memory in a stained glass window. Carleton College established a Haywood Library Fund and installed a memorial plaque on campus which reads, "A man modest, true, gentle, diligent in business, conscientious in duty, a citizen benevolent and honorable, towards God, reverent and loyal, who, while defending his trust as a bank officer, fearlessly met death at the hands of armed robbers in Northfield, September 7, 1876. This tablet is inscribed by his friends as a tribute to heroic fidelity, Esto fidelis usque ad mortem, which means faithful unto death. In 1948, Northfield citizens founded the Defeat of Jesse James Days to honor the heroism of the townspeople. It has become one of the largest celebrations in Minnesota. In 1983, the Joseph Lee Haywood Distinguished Service Award was created and is awarded annually to a Northfield citizen who exemplifies the commitment to public service for which Joseph Lee Haywood lived and died to, this is a quote, remind us of our past and our promise to improve our community for the future. In 1995, Carleton College also created the Joseph Lee Haywood Society for those who would like to make a commitment to Carleton College's future. The Haywood Society now includes over 1,200 members spanning 8 decades of Carleton alumni. Each September 7th, people gather at the Northfield City Cemetery to honor Joseph and Nicholas. Earlier I said that Millersburg, where Nicholas Gustafson lived, had no American-Swedish church. Because there was no American-Swedish church at which to bury Nicholas, Millersburg Lutherans immediately began planning for the construction of the Kristedala Evangelical Swedish Lutheran Church. Construction on the church began the following year. A historical marker in front of the church honors the memory of Nicholas Gustafson. Please take a moment to honor Nicholas Gustafson and read his historical marker at the end of this broadcast. In the end, crime never pays. In this case, it ended the lives of 2 innocent people. It also ended the crime spree of the James Younger gang. In 1882, 6 years after the failed robbery, Jesse James was shot in the back of the head while he was straightening a picture in his home. The shooter was Robert Ford, a recent gang recruit who wanted to collect the reward money. There's no honor amongst thieves. I'm Brad Dison. Thanks for watching. And now you know the rest of the story.